We're in jail. We're
in jail.
lifers.
Lifers. Video lifers. Testing.
We can just cut out whatever we don't want, right? So, in Camerata Retórica, Alexandra Hidalgo defines us as lifers whose video compositions are the motor behind video composition in the larger field.
So in the presentation today, we're going to talk about our videos that we've made as lifers and explain what we learned from them, because we've found over the years that there's takeaways from each project. Most of them, I think all of them, right, started as conference presentations, and most of them are also publications now. So throughout that process, we've just had a lot to learn.
So Hidalgo notes that lifers can be catalysts, inviting others to see film and video connections to their work. The multiplicity of words, images, and soundtracks is one of film and video production's most valuable contributions to rhetorical scholarship, providing 3 different channels that are in constant conversation with each other as we watch and interpret the author's message. Like an opera where 3 characters confess their secrets simultaneously in one aria, a video can support, contradict, and poke fun at itself all at once. If done well, this multi-layered interaction can deliver complex rhetorical ideas that cannot be replicated in other formats.
Yeah, that last part is really central to us because we've always tried to use video in a way that can't be replicated in print, and we don't call our work video essays, for example.
A lot of this was also, of course, inspired by Gregory Ulmer, and we're referring to Ulmer's call, essentially, to use video as a form of, or as a different form of rhetoric.
Yes, and
That's
his.
not what I'm trying to say.
Well, I think what you're trying to say is that we can do rhetorical things with video that we can't with other formats.
Yes.
Which is in Ulmer's essay, One Video Theory, which inspires us still, he cautions right at the beginning against explaining, using video to explain things. So we are going to enact that right now with a performance that Bahari put together of her invention process when she puts videos together, produces them.
Read my fortune too. Tell me what you see. Cross it like a T. It's all the same to me. This game I play, I do it every day. Promise I'll be fine. Bear it every time. When you turn the lights down low, when the color help me
Today we are going to be talking about the conspiracy theories behind 9/11. And I know it's a very, very hard subject to talk about, but for a lot of people, 9/11 was the thing that made them start questioning their surroundings, their reality, their government. Because when you learn the facts about 9/11, so much of it just doesn't add up. It was actually the odd, unexplained bits of 9/11 that made me start my journey towards truth.
See the state I'm in is crawling in my skin. Fevers took me back and turned me inside out. When the lights down it's what you do. This pulls me through to the other end, where it begins. You see through me, still it's coming back. I come alive. You stay all night. Feel it coming right through you. The color of your mind. Color of your It's what you do. This pulls me through. I come alive. You stay all night. It's what you do. This pulls me through. I come alive. You stay all night. Can be colored misery. Color of your mind.
Okay, so this video essentially, or what we call an assemblage, demonstrates the cumulative wisdom that we've gained from over a decade now of trials and errors and just a lot of work and methods of video scholarship.
So we hope that by revisiting a historical taxonomy of these presentations, we'll show how, over the years, we have enacted Ulmer's call for a method of invention, developing some new conventions for both conference presentations and video publications.
Okay, so in 2006, you said that you did your first video conference, and this was at Four Seas in Chicago.
It was very experimental. It was myself, a bunch of others. Some people made web text, anything that the audience could come up to your computer and interact with. And so I made a video called Hands in Writing, and the audience came up to my computer. We had no projection. They had to come up to the computer. They interacted with the project and then talked to me about it. And they did that with everyone at that panel. What I learned from that experience is how to make something that somebody has to interact with really no context. They just have to come up and hit play, watch it, and then ask me questions later. I also learned later on that there was this thing called YouTube that we didn't know about until later. Virginia Kuhn suggested that we upload our videos there so everyone could watch them again, and that was a new thing.
And so even, I think in 2006, most of us hadn't used YouTube or were very vaguely aware of it. So the whole concept of watching a video or consuming a video multiple times was something that you did if you watched like an entire movie over and over again, but nobody was really watching like 3 minutes of video over and over, which now is ubiquitous. Everybody's doing it. But at the time, I think it was kind of an entirely different way of interacting with video. And
it was really awesome because it got responses from people outside of our field, outside of our country. It just, was viewed and still is several thousand times, and comments from people all over. So that was a new and exciting experience.
So then the next time you presented a video was in 2008, where it was a panel with you, Jeff Carter, and Virginia Kuhn.
In New Orleans.
In New Orleans. And this was 4Cs again.
Yep.
Yes.
And we did build a panel as a video panel. I think it was called Tubing the Future or something like that. We were in this huge room, accommodated maybe 300 people, but of course, maybe 15 showed up. And we had no projector, no audio, nothing in there. And so we just, played it by ear, brought everybody close together, put the computers on a chair, and had them watch the videos that way. I remember Jeff Stirk was in the audience, and he was asking, this is telling us this is really cool, but how do we do this with first-year students? And so that kind of got the ball rolling for Jeff and I, at least, to start thinking about how do we do what we're arguing for in scholarship with our first-year students. And so what we learned from this and is really valuable is how to get through it, how to come up with workarounds and not just throw your hands up and say, I can't do this anymore.
Well, fast forward to 2011, and you said you were in Atlanta for 4Cs this time, and it was another panel presentation with you, Jeff Carter, Robert Luston, and one of Jeff's students, Scott Marrow. And it was titled The Cora of the Twin Towers.
Yes, so this was, we made this presentation to commemorate the 10th year anniversary of 9/11, where we applied our theoretical concept of Cora to the events that day. The panel came to be because of the student video. We had ideas for what we wanted to do, but it wasn't until we saw the video that we knew what we were going to do.
Too, from the student's perspective, to have your professors kind of interact with your work on that level, it just demands that you start engaging in a totally different mode of scholarship. So the next presentation after that was at 20Cs. We presented our first collaborative video at the 2012 MLA in Seattle, and we presented a video called The Dancing Floor that was based off of your, at the time, upcoming book.
Participatory composition, but it was based off of a chapter in there. And so she was in one of my graduate classes and wanted to work with that concept of Cora for the final project, and when she came to talk to me about it, I just said, oh hey, why don't you help me out with this video that I need to do in a couple weeks for the MLA convention. You gave me the chapter of your book and you said, here, pull quotes that you think, we might be able to enact, because it was like I had done like a video debate on cell phones in the classroom, but there were moments where I had kind of combined some of the theories that we were reading and I'd try to enact the theories through video, and you were like, oh, this is cool, maybe we could do something like this for the chapter and for the MLA conference. And so that's when we really started collaborating and thinking about how do we pull the key concepts from that chapter and then turn it into or remediate it into video format. It just kind of happened. You would send me clips and we would work it out, but I think this was really central to how things developed over the next several years. It was like panel to gallery, but same idea, but everybody on their table had a big flat screen. So that helped, but we also put the video on our two phones and on an iPad, and we brought multiple earbuds and big headphones for the phone because we wanted people to have different experiences. People were able to really get into the video and really have kind of an effective experience at the conference. I think in that video too, compared to some of the others up to that point, I at least paid way more attention to the mood that the video was giving off, instead of just the content, just the visuals. So we deliberately tried to create a mood, and each of the 4 sections has a different mood that we worked on later. We kind of assembled the video and then said, oh yeah, it's in 4 sections, and kind of worked backwards then, but did pay attention to mood. We wanted the audience to feel something, after watching it.
I think one of the first things you had said, the reason it was called the dancing floor, was because you were also working with Courtney Smethurst, who now she's working for Facebook now. So she had shown you a video of tango dancers, and it was something about how the 2 dancers were kind of in concert with each other in their the steps, and we were trying to kind of unpack that video and that metaphor along with this, and then from that kind of metaphor outpoured the dancing floor video, the 12-minute video, a couple seconds of imagery that had stuck out in Sarah's mind.
Right. That invention part, having Courtney's video as kind of a catalyst a little bit, having the written chapter, having our conversations, really worked together in creating what the video became.
And you said later, and I think we made another video about the production of that video. We were doing a lot of meta videos apparently. Although surprisingly, this is the first time we've ever done a video like this.
Yeah, faces.
talking head videos. You said that you actually ended up changing the chapter.
Oh yeah, I ended up making some changes to the chapter after that video.
So we were thinking how it was an interesting process, that it started out kind of like it was, a well-polished chapter, and then it turned into a video, and we completely changed the script. It was, taking portions, like the key ideas from that chapter in a video format, and then how that culminated in like a re-edit of the original chapter. Also that idea of really relinquishing that notion of authorship, right? Because you were saying that after a while, like, there was a quote that kind of went up, and this imagery that came with it, and the music that came with it, and we couldn't remember, like, it was from your book, but
we had repurposed it so many times that it's far, from the original.
So it was kind of back to that idea of the ideas driving the production, rather than having like the author driving the production, which I thought was really central to really the whole notion of the scholarship you've done since and I've done since. 2012 I think was a very productive year for us.
I know.
So once we did the dancing floor, we're like, ooh, let's do it again.
Okay, so let me try to get full of light. There it is. Is it on? Is this thing on?
You were slated to present at Computers and Writing in Raleigh, North Carolina.
State,
and it was the idiocy of idiocy, and you were on a panel
with Jeff Robert and Sharon Francis. And we, at that time, wanted to explore the idiotic parts of all video culture. The critiques we got early on was that, electricity, participatory culture, it's not all great. And so we thought, we need to explore what we were calling the underbelly, participatory culture. Or I had talked or emailed or something with Robert, and he had reminded me that Greg Ulmer said at the time he was working with this idea of videocy, which is like video literacy, way back before, the 80s. He dropped the term videocy and went for electracy instead, because he said videocy sounds too much like idiocy. So I got in touch with Greg and confirmed that he did say that, and he said he did, and said I could go with it. And so I thought, well, this is something that we need to look into, the idiocy of videocy. I did Alexandra Wallace, who did the famous, in 2011, Asians in the Library rant that could ruin her life, this video. So anyway, in that panel, we all, I explored that. Before I had gone to the panel, I emailed Bahar and said, hey, check out my video. I finally finished it. And then when I got back to my room that night, she had already repurposed it. What she did was spliced in the parodies after kind of every phrase that she would say, especially some of the more problematic ones. And so that was awesome, because then when I got back from the conference, we collaborated on that, or she kind of finished repurposing that video, and then we published it. And so we kind of thought the main idea out of that was reiterations of an idea, me making something to show at a conference, and then her taking it on and repurposing it.
And really making video with the idea of publication in mind, because we at this point, the dancing floor was also, we were in talks with Cheryl about kind of editing, and she was giving us some pointers about what we needed, adjusting audio levels, some of the more technical issues that we had. And so really with the creation of that video, it was with publication in mind. Part of what we do a lot is you really are paying a lot more attention to the affective realm, and video does that, and YouTube does that, and turning our lens on it, and then asking our viewers to also kind of go on a kind of a more condensed and emotionally powerful short journeys with us. Now it goes beyond just housing the video on YouTube and being able to get interaction in that way, but it's also mining YouTube for audience reactions and incorporating that back into the video. And so that's a form of participation. Again, in 2012, you went to Western States, and there was a panel on music and memory, and this was with you, Jeff Carter and Jeff Sirk. And this was when you were creating the Pop Cycle video.
Yeah, I had been working on that for years, and it never came to fruition until I made a video about the role of music in memory. For me, that was my Pop Cycle. I brought the video to the conference, and again, same thing kind of happened when Bahare saw it. Later, she said, I can make this better. Used some of my footage, but got a lot more footage. And the 3 videos are just amazing. They really enact what I was trying to go for in that Pop Cycle. So anyway, she had to work with that, in a culture that she's not familiar with, which is rural, small town Minnesota. The videos just really came to life after, and the students that have been watching them since have really learned from them, and used them as inspiration for exploring their own pop cycles.
This was where I think we both also started to become more aware that what we were doing together and what I was doing was a style of video making, what we call producing as a listener. And so essentially it's this was probably the most narrative video that I've ever...
It was narrative, but it was not nostalgic, because of the fact that
it's not my nostalgia.
It's you're recreating my memories.
Sarah had already done the Pop Cycle, so I think what Ulmer tries to stress is that the Pop Cycle isn't navel gazing, right? It's to kind of bring the apparatus and how they've kind of influenced you into relief. And I think having somebody else trying to remediate your Pop Cycle, you're way more aware of that, and you're more it's almost like doing a cultural anthropological some kind of study where you're going, wow, so this is an era, and in that era like these particular institutions existed, and like this is one iteration of how the institutions might have affected an individual. 2 things stick out to me. One was I had found footage online from the 70s in Minnesota, right? There was also one particular image of a girl that happened to look like Sarah, and people thought that we had pulled footage from her actual childhood, and we're like, no, this is just stuff that existed on YouTube.
And the girl at the end, even I didn't know that was me. I thought you took a picture of me when we were in the cab in Seattle, because it's like looking out from the side. Yeah. And so I didn't even know if that was me.
There was a moment of walking onto a school bus out of the snow.
Right.
And this was, it was just such a widespread cultural experience. Even though for Sarah, of course, it has to do with her and her particular memory, there's also this kind of a larger kind of cultural phenomenon that so many different people are sharing in, that maybe now kind of looking back, I guess, in that sense it's nostalgic because you're looking back, but it's not kind of getting lost in the nostalgia. It's looking at it and kind of analyzing again how the various institutions kind of like affected your being and your upbringing, and how that can speak to what can be done in the future. And so after the really productive year in 2012, where we also published quite a few pieces, Jeff Carter proposed that we do a panel on pinball. In 2013, we presented at MLA in Boston, and we did the Choric Slam Tilt.
We did a video last year at C's on the making of the Choric Slam Tilt, so I don't think we're going to talk about it much here because we have a great detail explanation, because that one was very interesting. We brought in another collaborator, another colleague, former student Amy Loy, who helped out with that video. Yeah, you can hear us explain if you go to thechoricarcade.wordpress.com, and that's called Composing a Symbiotic Collective.
But that was the first time that we really composed with just a theme in mind,
Right,
nothing
pinball.
else.
We didn't have a metaphor. We didn't have what theory we were going to work with. So we really had to hash that out in discussion to try to figure out how we can fuse our work into the theme of pinball, which seemed difficult, but once we got started on it, it made some sense.
One of the criticisms that we got where people were saying, well, this is too much to kind of intake.
Right. It was
it's overwhelming, and we were like, well, you can watch it again. Right. And so we really wanted to kind of reiterate that idea that, again, this is still scholarship. It's not, this isn't, just easy viewing. The idea is that you will watch it over and over again. And so with
QR code.
Yeah, with a QR code, so that whoever wanted to could, watch it again.
We specifically set out to make that video jarring.
Yeah.
There's nothing smooth. We wanted the mood to be kind of unsettling.
I kind of realized that the people, and then those more gallery-like formats, were going to come experience a moment and then walk away and then kind of privately view it later. So then, by this point, we had people asking us how we were making these videos, and people thought that we were using professional editing software and that we were animating, and they were often surprised to learn that we were working literally, as we are now, with iMovie. And several people kind of asked us, we thought, okay, we're going to do a meta-analysis. In 2014, we got accepted at 4C's
Indianapolis.
And we had a panel on video methodology with Jeff Carter, Robert Lustin, and us. And that one we knew that we were going to have, it wasn't a gallery format, that we were going to have kind of a more captive audience. And so we created 3 short videos, I think 3 3-minute videos, I think is what they turned out to be, and really started to work through like what is producing as a listener and what has our process kind of been, which we're kind of doing now but in much greater detail.
Yeah, she was finishing up her thesis, and producing as a listener was one of the main arguments or new concepts that was put forward. Didn't you take kind of what we did with my book, Chapters of Work, I did with your thesis, where you took a chapter and then illustrated it through the 2 videos, and then we did one together, right?
Yeah. So that was really a total mashup of previous videos, your book, my thesis, a lot of the ideas, the collaboration that we did together, pulling also from the collaborative work we've done with Jeff and Robert and Amy and Courtney. Kind of hones in on particular moments that are personal. There's a much kind of larger network that emerges out of the scholarship.
Yeah, that's when we realized that.
So the next conference after that was in the lovely Pullman, Washington. We presented at Computers and Writing with Corey Lease. That was our first standalone video.
Right, all video, yeah. So the theme was variations on a theme of the pop cycles. And Corey had watched that video in my class and made his own 2 versions that we played, and then Ari had made one, and that accompanied 2 other videos she had. So it was a little, dramatic, but it sustained the entire panel. Getting to that part, and we noticed that some people at the end were kind of moved to tears.
Yeah, that was by far my most exposed piece, I guess you could call it. And so that was when we struggled a bit, because we talked about whether or not we were going to publish it, because most of our videos we eventually reworked and re-edited for publishing. And that one I decided not to publish because I think it was too private, I guess, for me. But for me, there's a difference between having certain elements that, if I watch it, I know that there's that kind of personal connection happening, versus a video like this where it's very overtly about me and myself and my life and like events that had happened. And so while I don't regret making the video, I thought it was actually cathartic. I don't think I would ever want it to kind of have that wider audience. I think that Computers and Writing audience in that time, in that space, in the I guess parameters of the way that we were presenting it was perfect the way it was. And I think that's odd, because that would definitely be the first time I've ever made a video with you that I've not wanted to rework. It was just kind of like, it's gonna go, and I don't think I've ever watched it again. So the next presentation after that was 4C's 2015 in Tampa, Florida. And this was the panel that I was so pissed that I had to miss, because It was an all-star cast with Gregory Elmer, Cynthia Haynes, Jan Holmberg, Victor Vitanza, and Sarah.
But she did collaborate and made most of the video. It was, again, kind of extending our work with the pop cycle into the public sphere, where we looked at mashups of ISIS recruitment videos, and I mean, not mashups, but parodies and satire and things, and we wanted to make something out of that. And again, take that, the idea of pop cycle into the more public and participatory realm.
Yeah, playing with that idea of like the monument, the public monument. And so, in a sense, I think we were of the mindset that these videos videos on YouTube are a kind of public monument or a place.
So that taught us kind of how to deal more with public trauma and something as awful as ISIS recruitment videos and beheading videos and things. And so we had to contend with that as researchers, but then we found that most of the parodies were coming from within the communities that ISIS affects directly.
Kind of working against that charge of constantly looking at the Pollyanna, I guess, aspects of digital media and video. I'm really proud of that video.
Yeah, me too.
I think we did the subject justice.
Right. And that one ended up being published, and we wrote an accompanying article that's coming out soon too.
And that was the first time anything like that had happened, where the video ended up inspiring an essay. Yeah. So we'll fast forward to 2017, where we presented at 4Cs in Portland, and we were on that panel with Amy Loy, Jeff Carter, and Bonnie Kyberts. And in that video, really was a culmination of a lot of the lessons that Sarah had learned and taught me, and we kind of grappled with together throughout this entire tracing of the network. Essentially, how rich and complex and multi-layered production, where you're layering sound, actually multiple layers of sound, right? Because there's music, there's sometimes sound effects, and then voiceover if you're using them, text and imagery, still images, and beyond whatever script it is that you're writing for the video. There's a much kind of deeper network there. And essentially it's 3 seconds of video. I mean, in a production like this, it's a little different because we're doing like the talking head thing, which you can tell we're very comfortable with doing in some of the video scholarship. So maybe 30 seconds of footage can actually be weeks of scholarship, or it's drawing up weeks or years of.
Right. Yeah.
Brings us now to 4Cs 2018. And so essentially, I think our main takeaway from tracing this network is really with every video I know that we've collaborated on, one of our goals has been to invite others to participate and to expand the conversation, or to create videos that respond or oppose, or I don't know, but just to create with us. And we invite anyone watching to do the same.